Listen up, because what I am about to tell you will make you question everything you thought you knew about strength, about power, and about what happens when an intergalactic empire meets the one species they should have feared from the very beginning. You see, we Valorians have conquered 47 star systems. We have enslaved billions. We have torn apart entire civilizations with our bare hands and laughed about it over drinks made from the crystallized tears of our enemies. We are invincible. We are eternal. We are absolutely, positively, 100% about to get humiliated by a single human woman with nothing but rage in her eyes and determination in her bones. But I am getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you how this catastrophe began. My name is Krell Voxian, and I have spent the last 15 years serving as a tactical commander in the Valorian Empire. Our race is magnificent, if I do say so myself. We stand 7 feet tall with purple-tinted skin that shimmers under the light of 3 suns. Our muscles are dense, our reflexes are sharp, and our weapons technology is approximately 5,000 years ahead of any primitive species we encounter. Which brings us to Earth. Yes, that tiny blue marble floating in the backwater regions of space, home to the humans, and this is where things get interesting. The invasion was supposed to be routine. A lightning strike operation. 3 star destroyers, 500 Valorian soldiers, minimal resistance expected. The humans had nuclear weapons, which sounds intimidating until you realize we can teleport behind your defenses, vaporize your entire air force, and have dinner while your governments are still trying to figure out what happened. Standard Tuesday stuff for us, but nothing, absolutely nothing could have prepared us for Captain Sara Whitmore. She emerged from the ruins of a military complex in Nevada, not commanding an army, not piloting a massive robot, not wielding some ancient alien artifact. Just her, alone, in a tattered combat uniform with dirt smeared across her face and fire burning in her grey eyes, and there I stood, Krell Voxian, Supreme Commander of the Nevada campaign, surrounded by my elite guard, wearing armor that could withstand a thermonuclear blast. "Drop your weapons, human," I announced, my voice projected through the external speakers of my combat suit, amplified to a booming rumble that shook the rubble beneath her feet. "Your species has fought admirably, but futilely. This planet now belongs to the Valorian Empire. Your resistance is acknowledged. Your defeat is inevitable." She laughed. Actually laughed. That sound, it was mocking, defiant, and absolutely infuriating. "You're done talking," she said, rolling her shoulders like she was about to go for a jog rather than face down an alien warlord and his 20-person elite strike force. "Silence," I roared, taking a step forward that caused the ground itself to tremble. I held up my gauntleted hand, spreading my 7-fingered appendages wide. "Look at these hands, human. Empty, yes. Yet they have crushed battleships. They have torn apart fortifications. They have ended the lives of 9,000 warriors in combat. Your people do not have hands like mine. Your people have, what? Fragile little things with 5 fingers each. Pathetic. You should be grateful that we will make your extinction quick." I was enjoying this. I admit it. The banter, the drama, the sheer inevitability of what was about to happen. Humans are so amusing with their defiance, their courage, their absolute refusal to accept reality even when it is standing 8 feet in front of them wearing armor and carrying weapons that can level city blocks. "You done?" Sara asked, cracking her knuckles. The sound echoed across the devastated landscape. "I have barely begun, little creature," I said, gesturing to my soldiers. "Kill her." The strike team moved with the precision of warriors who had trained for centuries. We Valorians do not rush. We do not make errors. We are calculated, efficient, and utterly superior in every measurable way. 5 soldiers moved to flank her from the left. 4 more approached from the right. The remaining soldiers established a perimeter to ensure she could not escape. Classic tactical formation. Textbook execution. Guaranteed victory. She moved like nothing I had ever seen before. It was not superhuman speed. It was not some kind of technological enhancement. It was just pure, concentrated skill mixed with an animal's instinct for survival. She moved between the soldiers on her left, like water flowing around stones, avoiding their plasma fire by millimeters, ducking beneath the sweeping arc of a vibrational blade, and somehow managing to stay exactly where she needed to be. One of our soldiers, Krell Thorax, tried to grab her. His hands were massive, reinforced by armor, and capable of crushing bone with minimal effort. She grabbed his wrist, pivoted her entire body weight, and threw an opponent who outweighed her by 300 pounds directly into two of his comrades. They went down like dominoes made of flesh and armor. Impossible, I muttered, my confidence beginning to waver. Just slightly. Just a fraction. A sensation I had not experienced in decades. She turned toward me now, her breathing controlled, her face set in an expression of pure determination. There was no fear in those grey eyes, no hesitation. Just the burning certainty of someone who had already made peace with dying and was now operating entirely on spite. "Your turn, big guy," she said, stepping forward. I laughed, a genuine rumbling laugh that echoed across the ruins. This was insulting, offensive. Beneath me, I had fought Sarthic demons on the obsidian plains of Cramarax. I had single-handedly held the Bridge of Thousand Echoes against the entire Cormalian invasion fleet, and now I was being challenged by a 5'8" human who weighed approximately 140 pounds. I raised my massive fist and brought it downward in a strike that would have split a mountain in half. She moved sideways by inches and grabbed my wrist with both hands. "This is the part where I tell you something funny." Actually, no, it was not funny. It was the most terrifying moment of my existence. Because instead of trying to push back against my strike, she pulled me off balance. My weight, my momentum, my massive frame all worked against me. I stumbled forward, and she pivoted, using my own force to throw me over her shoulder. I crashed into the ground with enough impact to leave a crater. The air left my lungs in a painful gasp. My armor groaned under the impact. And I realized in that singular moment of absolute clarity that I had made a grave mistake. I had assumed combat mastery, translated directly to physical superiority. I had believed that bigger was always better. I had never considered that a species could develop an entire philosophy around using an opponent's strength against them. And more importantly, I had mocked her empty hands. I should have learned in that moment that humans are a species worth fearing, that their weakness is a deception, that their resilience is built into their very DNA. But I was Krell Voxian, Supreme Commander, veteran of 1,000 battles, and I was about to make an even bigger mistake. I would stand up, draw my plasma rifle, and fire directly at her, and she would move faster than I thought possible, cross the distance between us, and end this confrontation in a way that would change the entire trajectory of human-Valorian relations forever. But that is a story for part 2. I rose to my feet, my armor hissing and groaning from the impact. Pain shot through my left shoulder. My ribs felt tender, which should not have been possible. Nothing should penetrate Valorian combat armor. Nothing should bruise a Valorian body. We are made of sterner stuff than ordinary flesh and bone, or at least, that is what I had always believed. Sara Whitmore stood before me, barely breathing hard, her hands still empty, still mocking, still absolutely infuriating. "You are making a mistake," I growled, my hand moving toward the plasma rifle secured at my hip. Around us, my remaining soldiers were already engaging defensive positions, weapons charging up with that distinctive whine that has ended countless battles across the galaxy. We had been caught off guard once. That would not happen again. 30 soldiers, 1 human. Simple mathematics. She smiled. Actually smiled. "No," she said. "You're about to make one." I drew my rifle. The weapon powered up instantly, its barrel glowing with the accumulated heat of billions of joules of energy. One shot would vaporize a city block. One shot would turn her into atoms scattered across the Nevada desert. One shot would end this absurd confrontation. I fired. The beam of superheated plasma tore through the air at the speed of light. There was no way to dodge it. No human reflexes were fast enough. No amount of training could overcome the laws of physics. I watched as the beam closed the distance between us, and she was simply gone. Not vaporized. Not knocked backward by the blast. Gone. Moved. Repositioned herself in the space of a heartbeat to a location my targeting system had not even registered as a possibility. She was beside me now, close enough that I could see the individual scars on her face, close enough to smell the sweat and blood and dirt that clung to her uniform, close enough for her to reach up, grab the barrel of my rifle, and twist it sideways in a motion that should have required the strength of a starship's engine. The rifle snapped like a twig. "What in the name of the void?" I started to say. She drove her elbow backward, slamming it into my sternum with the force of a falling meteorite. The impact sent me staggering backward, my massive frame suddenly feeling fragile, vulnerable, and very, very mortal. My soldiers opened fire. The courtyard erupted into chaos. Plasma bolts painted the sky in brilliant shades of orange and red. Vibration weapons hummed with lethal frequency. Concussive charges exploded in rapid succession. A normal human would have been obliterated instantly. A normal human would have dissolved into nothing more than a bad memory. Sara Whitmore was not a normal human. She moved through the firefight like a dancer performing a choreography she had perfected across 1,000 lifetimes. Every step was purposeful. Every movement was economical. Every action served a singular purpose: to close the distance between her and her enemies. She did not waste energy on elaborate acrobatics. She did not slow down for dramatic effect. She simply moved from point A to point B with the efficiency of a guided missile and the grace of water flowing downhill. A soldier named Vextula tried to intercept her. He was one of our best hand-to-hand combatants, a veteran of the siege of Morix, someone who had personally killed 273 opponents in personal combat. He launched a series of strikes designed to disable, to maim, to overwhelm through sheer volume of offense. Sara caught his first punch, pivoted, and drove her forehead into his nose so hard that his entire skeletal structure rearranged itself internally. He dropped like someone had unplugged his motor functions. Another soldier, Krell Voxian, attempted to flank her from the side. She spun, grabbed his wrist before he could even complete his strike, and used his own arm as a lever to catapult him into 3 of his companions. They went down in a tangle of limbs and armor and very confused Valorian soldiers. I watched this unfold with a growing sense of doom. This was not how combat was supposed to work. We were the dominant species. We were the predators. Humans were supposed to be the prey. And yet here was this single woman, this impossibly skilled warrior, systematically dismantling my elite strike force like she was swatting insects. "Fall back," I roared, activating my personal shield generator. The technology created a barrier around me that could deflect weapons fire, absorb kinetic impacts, and generally keep me alive long enough to reassess the situation. Sara charged directly at me. She ran across the rubble without hesitation, without doubt, without any acknowledgement of the barrier that should have stopped her cold. When she hit my shield, instead of bouncing backward, she used it as a springboard. Her feet planted against the energy field and she pushed off with enough force to launch herself upward into the air. I looked up in confusion just as she descended toward me with her fist raised high. The shield failed under the impact. I know. Shields do not simply fail. They are hardened by billions of processing calculations per second. They are reinforced by quantum-locked energy generators. They should be able to withstand the concentrated fire of a planetary defense grid. But they apparently cannot withstand a human woman who has decided that her empty hands are more than sufficient. Her fist connected with my shoulder. The armor crumpled like paper. The flesh beneath broke in at least 4 different places. The sensation was beyond pain. It was a violation of every physical law I had taken for granted my entire life. I stumbled backward, my left arm suddenly useless, hanging at an angle that arms should not hang. She pressed her advantage without mercy. Another punch aimed at my right ribs. I blocked it with my other arm and the impact was so severe that I heard bone cracking. My armor should not have failed. My body should not have been vulnerable. Nothing in my entire existence had prepared me for this scenario. "You mocked her empty hands," she said, her voice steady despite the exertion. "That was your mistake. She pivoted, rotating her entire body weight into another punch aimed directly at my sternum. I tried to move, but my reflexes, my training, my advanced physiology all seemed to be operating at a fraction of their normal capacity. The punch landed true. My ribs shattered. Not cracked, not fractured. Shattered. Like dry wood struck with an axe. The pain was white-hot, all-consuming, and absolutely incapacitating. I went to my knees, gasping for air that my damaged lungs could no longer properly process. Around me, my soldiers were pulling back, regrouping, trying to establish a new defensive perimeter. But it was clear from their body language, from the way they were looking at their commander on his knees with broken ribs and shattered pride, that something fundamental had shifted. We were no longer winning this battle. We were no longer invincible. We had met a species that we had vastly underestimated, and we were paying the price for our arrogance. Sara stood over me, breathing heavy but controlled. Her empty hands were no longer empty in terms of capability. They were weapons far more effective than anything we had brought to this fight. More effective than our technology, our training, or our superiority. "Your empire," she said, "is no longer welcome on my world." I looked up at her, this human woman who should not exist, who should not be capable of what she had just done, who had somehow managed to defeat me in combat despite every disadvantage the universe had given her. "You are welcome to try to leave," she continued. "But if any more Valorians set foot on Earth, we will respond with far worse than what you experienced today. Do you understand me?" I nodded slowly. Understanding had come far too late, but it had come nonetheless. The remaining soldiers received the order to stand down. We retreated to our ships. The evacuation of Nevada began immediately. The Valorian Empire, masters of 47 star systems, were being driven from this world by a single human and the weight of her conviction. As our ship lifted off from the surface, I stood on the observation deck, staring down at the planet below. Somewhere on that world, Captain Sara Whitmore was probably getting a medal or a promotion or whatever it is that humans do when they win wars against civilizations that can reshape planets with sufficient firepower. And somewhere in the vast reaches of space, the word would spread. Humans are dangerous. Humans are unpredictable. Humans are the only species in the known galaxy that can make empires fall with nothing more than determination and empty hands that are never truly empty when filled with purpose. The Valorian Empire would return one day. The desire for conquest never truly dies in our species, but we would return differently. We would return with respect. We would return with the knowledge that strength is not always measured in size or technology or the number of weapons at your disposal. Sometimes strength is measured in will. Sometimes strength is measured in the refusal to quit. And sometimes, just sometimes, strength is measured in two empty hands that refuse to stay empty. That is the story of how the Valorian Empire learned to fear. That is the story of how one woman taught an entire galactic power that humanity's greatest strength was never the weapons we carried. It was always the warriors inside us who refused to be conquered.